Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Will Gold Rush call it quits after Season 10? Is Gold Rush cancelled? Has Discovery renewed Gold Rush for Season 11? What is next for Parker Schnibel, Rick Ness and Tony Beets? Is Gold Rush coming back for Season 11 on Discovery? This is what we know so far. Is Gold Rush cancelled? Gold Rush Season 10 is ending within a week. Although Rick Ness has had a disastrous season, Tony Beets seems to be doing ok, and Parker continues to amaze viewers with outstanding totals. TV show's Ace reported that Dave Turin sang his praises for both Tony Beets and Parker Schnibel. He respected how Beets has created a decades-old, successful operation. He even called Parker Schnibel amazing. But what does Discovery think? Could there be a Gold Rush Season 11? According to Renew Cancel TV, the Discovery Channel has not said anything about Season 11. Are the miners gearing up for another season of gold mining? It appears so, although there has been mainly radio silence from Tony, Parker, and Rick. But Gold Rush fans can assume that ratings will be a huge part of whether there is another season of gold mining. In that case, fans can breathe easy, because By the Numbers has reported that the Discovery show has been at the top of Friday night ratings. Some weeks the gold mining show has even beat out the NBA in ratings. If the show was done or if anyone was leaving the airwaves, there would be an announcement. Last month, TV show's Ace did share a rumor by the Gold Rush News YouTube channel that the Ness crew and the European millennials of the Discovery production crew had some shouting matches over politics. The rumor continued to claim that because of this political discord, members of Rick's team have yet to be paid. They also contend that Rick has been on the phone, doing everything in his power, including countless phone calls and endless emails. Will Team Rally be without some cheesehead gold miners? Hard to know. Fans just want to see Rick Ness and their favorite gold mining show back for Season 11. Spin-offs may give clue to future. What we do know is that Gold Rush spin-offs are continuing. The week after Gold Rush Season 10 ends, TV show's Ace reports that Gold Rush, Parker's Trail begins on March 13. This time, Parker, Fred Lewis, and their revamped crew are traveling around Australia, finding massive amounts of gold. Don't forget Dave Turin. TV show's Ace reported Dave Turin's Lost Mine started on February 21. He is focused on mining gold only in Montana. This show should last through March and perhaps into early April. The Alaskan wilderness, with its rugged mountains and dense forests, had always been a place where legends were born. For more than a decade, the untamed frontier served as the backdrop for some of the greatest treasure hunts of the modern era. The dreamers, the misfits, the hopeful, and the desperate, all drawn to the promise of riches buried deep within the earth. But as the 10th season of Gold Rush loomed on the horizon, a question hung heavy in the air. Would this be the last chapter in the saga of modern-day prospectors? The wind howled through the narrow valley, whipping the loose snow into swirling eddies. Parker Schnabel stood at the edge of his claim, his eyes squinting against the biting cold. The young miner, who had grown up on this land, knew every ridge and ravine by heart. He had spent the best years of his life chasing gold here, learning the secrets of the earth and pushing the limits of what a person could endure. But something was different this time. As Parker looked out over the frozen landscape, he felt a weight pressing down on him, a sense of finality that had never been there before. The gold was still out there, hiding in the permafrost, but the cost of getting it seemed to grow with each passing season. The machines were bigger, the crews larger, and the risks more significant. And in the back of his mind, a voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, it was time to let go. Across the continent in the lower 48, Rick Ness sat in a cramped office, poring over the numbers from the last season. The former foreman-turned-mine boss had faced more than his share of challenges. The rookie mistakes, the breakdowns, the uncooperative weather, it had all taken its toll. But the numbers didn't lie. The gold they had pulled from the ground was dwindling, and no amount of grit or determination could change that. Rick leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. He had always prided himself on his toughness, his ability to dig deep when the going got tough, but there was a fine line between persistence and foolishness, and he was beginning to wonder if he had crossed it. The dream of striking it rich had driven him to the edge, and now, as he stared at the spreadsheets, he couldn't shake the feeling that the edge was getting closer. Meanwhile, in the Yukon, Tony Beats, the legendary king of the Klondike, was facing his own reckoning. The grizzled veteran had seen it all: booms and busts, triumphs and tragedies. He had built an empire on the back of his relentless pursuit of gold, but even he wasn't immune to the changing tides. Environmental regulations were tightening, the cost of equipment was skyrocketing, and the veins of gold were running thinner. The business was becoming more of a gamble with each passing season, and Tony knew that luck could only carry a man so far. For the Beats family, mining wasn't just a job, it was a way of life. But as Tony watched his children shoulder more of the burden, he couldn't help but wonder if he was leading them down a path that no longer made sense. The stakes were higher than ever, and the margins were razor thin. Was it worth risking everything year after year for a shrinking prize? The producers of Gold Rush had always known that the show's appeal lay in its authenticity. The miners were real, the challenges were real, and the gold was real. But after 10 seasons, even the most compelling stories start to feel familiar. The crew had followed these men and women through countless ups and downs, documenting their struggles and victories. But as they prepared for the 10th season, the producers found themselves grappling with a question they had never faced before. What if this was the end of the road? Behind the scenes, the tension was palpable. The network executives were eager to keep the show going, but they were also acutely aware of the risks. The mining operations were expensive to film, and the ratings, while still strong, were not immune to the inevitable decline that comes with time. And then there was the question of the cast. Could they continue to push themselves to the brink, knowing that each season might be their last? The miners, too, felt the uncertainty. For some, the thought of leaving the gold fields behind was almost unthinkable. This life, harsh and unforgiving as it was, had become part of their identity. But for others, the prospect of moving on held a certain appeal. The years of backbreaking work, the constant stress, the ever-present danger, it all added up. And with each passing season, the lure of a different life, one with fewer risks and more stability, grew stronger. As the 10th season unfolded, the narrative took on a new tone. The familiar scenes of roaring machinery and rushing water were tinged with a sense of nostalgia, as if the miners themselves were aware that this could be the last time they stood together on this ground. The camaraderie that had always been a hallmark of the show was still there, but it was accompanied by an undercurrent of reflection. What had they gained, and what had they lost, and most importantly, was it all worth it? In the final episode, as the miners gathered around a campfire, the conversation turned to the future. The flames cast flickering shadows on their faces, and for a moment, the weight of the past 10 years seemed to hang in the air. Parker spoke first, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. He talked about the journey, the lessons learned, and the sacrifices made. Rick followed, his words carrying a mix of pride and regret. Tony, ever the pragmatist, simply nodded, acknowledging the realities of the life they had chosen. As the fire crackled and the night grew colder, there was a sense of closure, but also of possibility. The miners knew that whatever came next, they had been part of something extraordinary. They had chased a dream that most people could only imagine, and in doing so, they had forged bonds that would last a lifetime. Whether Gold Rush would return for another season was still an open question, but in that moment it didn't seem to matter. The journey was what mattered, the pursuit of something elusive, the challenge of pushing beyond the limits, and the knowledge that win or lose, they had given it their all. As the embers of the fire began to die down, the camera pulled back, capturing the vast wilderness that had been both friend and foe to these modern-day adventurers. The gold was still out there somewhere, but for now, the search was over. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough.